United with Christ. Meet local churches with open doors, serving throughout the Border Valley community and sharing the truth and hope of God's love and salvation. A presentation of Live Christian Broadcasting Television. And now, United with Christ.
Happy Wednesday and welcome back to United with Christ. We are so glad you are here. Today we have some special guests, Pastor Adrian Beal and Pastor Kayla Beal, and they are with Antioch Revival Center, and they are going to talk to us today about an exciting opportunity that those in El Paso and the surrounding areas can rally around and really get behind this project. It is a project that is right in the center of the heart of Jesus, reaching the lost and the forgotten and the broken and the homeless and the hurting. And so we're going to talk to them today. We're going to get to know them a little better, learn how they got to El Paso. They're full-time missionaries here to the borderland, like my husband and myself, and we're just going to hear a little bit of their story, so we just want to welcome them. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
So I think I want you to talk a little bit about the church.
Okay.
And tell people how you got to El Paso, because neither one of you are from here. So what that process was like, hearing the call of God on your life and how you got there. Because all month here on United with Christ, we've been talking about following Christ and things that hinder us from following Christ. And the first week we talked about the difference between coming to Jesus but truly being a follower of Christ.
Yeah.
So as missionaries, we know you guys are truly following Christ, left your home, left your family. So just share a little bit of your journey with us about how you got here.
Yeah, no, actually it started with, in 2013, it really started with a vision I had with the Lord. I was working in my backyard in a small town called Brownwood, Texas, and I was working on my fence. The fence kept tipping over, and it was a wood kind of fence, and I would reset it up and do the posts in the ground and put the wood back, and it would fall again and again. I thought, man, there's something going on with the borders of my property, and it just really was a unique time. I was trying to restore it, and while I was doing it, I was listening to an audio message on a podcast, and while doing so, the Lord I felt His presence come into my backyard. And it's one thing when you feel God's presence, but then it's like He keeps coming and He comes more. I'm like, whoa, what's going on, Lord? Like, you're doing something. And if you guys are like me, I looked around to the left and right, see who was watching, and then I closed my eyes and, okay, Jesus, what are you doing? I make sure I was clear. And the Lord gave me a clear vision of the state of Texas and the country of New Mexico. And I saw a Texas-Mexico border, and there was fire running all along the border of Texas and Mexico. And I saw light shoot out of the center of Texas and go out every different direction. Yeah. And I heard the voice of the Lord say, Adrian, I'm going to touch the tip of Texas with revival, El Paso. I thought, man, I have never been to El Paso in my entire life.
Yeah, me neither.
I had no reason to come to El Paso. I had no family here. I had no friends here. We heard the sound of the Lord's voice in my spirit. We sat on that for some time. We spent in 2015. It's when we did Reinhard Bonnke's School of Evangelism, or 2014. It's when we did Reinhard Bonnke's School of Evangelism, and we just really kept hearing the Lord say, Africa, Africa, Africa. 2015, we spent 2.5 months with Roland Heidi Baker at Harvest School in Pemba, Mozambique.
Yeah.
There, the Lord just really confirmed in our spirits to Mexico, get to El Paso. And what was the word that was given to you?
So one night we had family nights, and one of the couples, she came up to me and she said, I really just felt so impressed just while you were speaking to share this with you. And so after it was all over, she came back and she said, I have this word about El Paso and Juarez. And she said, I felt like if you had already been there, some things wouldn't have happened in the spiritual. Like you would have stopped some things. And
Wow.
I really feel like, she goes, I know you guys are going towards Mexico. We had said that before. We had talked about it. But she goes, I really feel direction for El Paso Juarez. And when she said that, I immediately remembered the vision that he had 3 years ago. We hadn't shared that with anybody. Honestly, he had the vision. We prayed for El Paso, or like bless El Paso, and that was the end of it. And as soon as she said that, I remembered that, and I knew that nobody knew. And so the Lord just confirmed it in our hearts so strongly that El Paso Juarez is where we needed to be. And so,
Yep. That night, we actually wrote out a letter of resignation to my job, and Kayla shortly thereafter. We both sent out letters of resignation from Africa to our jobs. We were deep into our profession and into our careers, and we're working well, making a good living. Our kids were in a very good private school, and we just sent letters of resignation out everywhere. Pulled our kids out of school, put our house up for sale, started garage selling, which you guys know what that's like.
Yes, yes.
And the hardest thing I had for me to bear was pulling my kids out of school away from their friends, you know.
Yeah.
But as we begin to go, we just knew that's what the sound of the Lord was saying to us, and it was very costly for us. And just in our heart, really, to leave to the borderland.
Yeah.
And so what a joy it's been to follow the Lord, and to move away from your home, move away from your family, move away from your friends, into a place we never knew. And here we are. We spent about a year and a half living in Juarez, did some major conferences in Juarez. We were able to gather large amounts of pastors and leaders, and just be able to reach Juarez through different endeavors, through receiving missionary teams, through doing leadership schools within Mexico. And we're excited to be pioneering now in the inner cities of El Paso.
you're right.
It's super exciting. And I do believe that one of the things that truly keeps people from following Christ is that sacrifice. It's the story of the rich young ruler. Like, I don't mind going to church. I don't mind reading my Bible and keeping the commandments. But when you're asking for my entire lifestyle to change and to sacrifice even the comfort of your children and your spouse, for us, the journey, because we had done, mission trips that were 3-4 months long, I thought, it's not going to be that big of a transition to move, because we've moved a lot. We did the inner city in Georgia. We've done a lot of moving. And so I wasn't expecting the emotional pull that I had moving here. Yep. The day I left my house, my dad is ill. He has some chronic things, and we don't know how, only the Lord knows how much time he has left. But, I was taking care of him full time. He was there with us. And so the day I get ready to leave, I realized telling him bye, not knowing if I would get back home to see him again, was harder than I expected. The yard sale, selling everything, most of the stuff, I'm not a real sentimental type person, but I did realize that telling my parents bye was hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I knew the Lord was worth it. But I knew when my heart was being tugged at that day, I'm like, okay, I need to get in the car and leave now. Like, I just need to head toward what Jesus is saying, because the longer I wait, the harder it is. But I think people have a hard time with the sacrifice part.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that when God has called you and you're not submitting, things just get crazy in your life.
Things don't go right.
They don't. The fence will literally fall over 100 times until you say, maybe I shouldn't be putting this fence up. Maybe I should be in Mexico putting a fence up.
Right.
And it's kind of the Lord's way of, I feel like removing the branch, and taking the raven away. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's time to go. Your comfort level has ended. And what I have found when I talk to people like you guys, and what we've done, and people that are really just sold out and like, Jesus, whatever you want, they can have the craziest circumstances.
Yep.
When you talk about Heidi and Roland, you can literally have a dirt floor and go on a one-way ticket and have no idea how you're going to feed these children.
That's right.
But you're so joyful in doing it.
That's right.
Our little straw hut, I'm so happy over it. And literally, when I tell people, the internet guy came the other day and he's drilling through the wall, and he said, ma'am, did you know this house is made of like straw? I said, yeah, I did. I was like, missionaries built it. It's been built this long. It's holding up. It's great. We're happy.
Yep. Right.
And God brings such joy when we follow him. But in that, I know that God has sent you guys to El Paso and Juarez as like gatekeepers, but with a specific word.
Yep.
So what is the heart behind what Antioch Revival Center is doing and what you guys are doing in the inner city?
Yeah, well, I think there's really four steps to what our model and method of reaching our city, which is one is a reach, which through the reach, it is through pure evangelism. Sometimes that's one-on-one, sometimes it's an open-air meeting, sometimes it's partnering with another church and doing an open-air reach to a park or to a community. Yeah. These are ways of expressing just to simply win the lost, to go get the harvest, that there is a harvest on the border. And the principles, a revival that we've always been trained in and that we've seen fruit in is we go to the least of these. Yeah. We go to the poorest of the poor. We don't just go to the homeless. We go to the addict population. You know, yes. Like you guys go into the red light districts and going to those people, that particular people group is on the heart of the Lord because it's such a forgotten community. These days within local churches, it's easier to send missionaries into Africa than it is to send missionaries into your own inner city because there's not as much pizzazz or charisma around the thought of getting to missions. But frankly, this is a mission field right here in our local city. So we begin with a reach, and then we begin, as we reach, we start to make disciples in those areas. And so we've done inner city life groups where we've gathered on back porches right here in our inner city of El Paso. Yeah. We've done life groups. We've helped mobilize another church in Juarez. We did a leadership school. After leadership school was completed, they went from 0 to like 15 life groups and just just exploded. So after doing that stage of discipleship, we really move into a new type of stage, which is planting, which this is where we're at now in the inner city. We've reached, we've discipled, and now we are planting in the inner city of El Paso. We're so excited to have just purchased this property on Noble, 150, 148 Noble Street. This area has been known very well for drug trafficking and prostitution and just a lot of illegal activity. You know, it's made the news. It's no secret the news that is the publicity that they've attracted in the area. But now we're planting there. So we're excited to go to the least of these with the gospel because it's the gospel that brings transformation.
Yeah. So we're really excited. Noble's been just really on our heart. We've been going down there almost weekly for the last 3 years. Yep. And we haven't missed too many weeks in the last 3 years, just going down and reaching. And we had done the discipleship, and then this property came for sale, and we were just kind of asking the Lord, like, Lord, is this what you want for us? Are we okay where we're at? Or, you know, just kind of talking to the Lord about the situation. And one day I was just really praying on it and thought, well, we go there. It's not like we're not going there, Lord. Like, I'm not going to stop going. Just, do you want me to buy this property? And the Lord just said that my river runs to the lowest place. And I really just felt like when he said that my presence is here and that it was going to be a life source. Mm-hmm. And so this Noble property is really just a life source for us. It's a life source for the people down there. I believe it's going to be a life source for anybody that comes and joins and helps down there. We're just have our own place, and they know us, you know. Yep. And so we really we have just different things we're going to do. We're going to engage the community. We're going to have essentials and education and different ways that we're going to reach down there. But it's a new venture we're excited about.
Yeah, and so the fourth stage, you know, we reach, we disciple, we plant. But the fourth stage is sending, that's twofold. One, we want to send from Noble Street, from people that we reach. But we also want to send to Noble Street, which means, the inner city issues of our city isn't a problem for Antioch or Kaleo per se, but it is the responsibility of the church of our city. Absolutely. And so what we want to do is really position a vehicle for the local churches here in El Paso, Las Cruces, this borderland area to be mobilized into the harvest fields. If you don't have experience leading someone to the Lord, if you don't have experience praying for the sick or seeing someone set free from an oppression, We want to equip you. We want to train you
Yeah.
and equip you with those tools so that you can reach the least of these. And I really believe that it's the wisdom of God to use the least of these to train the church in maturity, to train the church in what hunger looks like, to train the church in what thirst looks like, to train the church in what desperation looks like, because these are the attributes that we need, where the Bible says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom. So in coming to the poor, I truly believe that you'll be equipped and you won't be disappointed in going out to them and just receiving the fruit back in your life and touching the kingdom.
I love that. And I love that whatever gift people have, you know, maybe they haven't done a lot of street ministry, but if you cut hair, it's needed on
100%.
Noble.
Absolutely.
If you have a small business and your gift is to give, there's a link on the screen and you can give toward this work. Right now, the property, they're in the remodeling phase. And so it's got to totally be refurbished where clean up from drug use and everything,
Yep.
everything you can imagine that was done in the house. And so this is literally the heart of Jesus, moving into the darkness and establishing a place that is a beacon of light and hope. And I know as church people, there's a lot of things we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't blame people for not knowing what they don't know.
Right.
But we can educate them that it's not just a drug addict, that it's not just a prostitute, it's not just a homeless person, but how did these people get there?
Yep.
And it is the responsibility of the church to go after these people.
Yeah.
And when I think about how did these people get there, and we know the need for revival in the borderland, what we may not know is that right now Mexico is number one in trafficking humans across another country's border. Well, where are they being trafficked? Right here in the borderland.
Yep.
A lot of the people that are in the streets are not there by choice.
Right.
A lot of them were sold into trafficking by parents that were drug addicts. And nobody wakes up and says, I want to be a drug addict. I want to be an alcoholic. I want to be homeless. No, these are people who have experienced trauma. They have experienced things that happen in their life that were out of their control, and they're self-medicating. There are veterans out there that just did not know how to cope when they come back home and lost everything. And so we are really ministering to God's people in street ministry we've run into. I don't know, I couldn't count the number of pastors' kids we've run into on the street that ended up out there. And I had heard a story yesterday, was just listening to Christian radio, and I heard a story that moved me so much about how people end up out there. And it was a story of a young man. He was separated from his wife. He called himself an atheist. He did not believe in God at all. What it boiled down to, he was very mad at God. He had grown up being severely physically and emotionally abused by his father. His father was in addiction. And him and his wife had separated, and she said, can I borrow your van? And she was a believer, and she had borrowed the van. Well, when she returns the van, he calls her, you know, just cursing and screaming, and he's like, what did you do to my van? And she's like, I didn't do anything in it. And she hadn't. All she had did was drive the van around the weekend and prayed, God, you have to get your word to him. He won't listen. Well, when he receives his van back, his rock station won't play anymore, and he was like a heavy metal guy. The only station that will play on his radio is Christian radio. Happened to be like K-Love or something. And for months, he could not.
Oh, wow.
Well, obviously he gets saved. He comes to know the Lord. He sells the van. Well, the guy that comes to buy the van, he gets in the car, and as soon as he cranks the van, the old rock radio station he used to keep it comes on. And the guy's like, what did you do to fix the radio? And he said, I didn't do anything.
That's so funny.
And so ends up a couple weeks later, the guy that had purchased the van realized he couldn't afford it, so he brought it back. Well, the moment the guy gets in it, it won't play anything but the Christian radio station
Oh my
again.
gosh.
And so, you know, he keeps that van for years, and he gets ready to park the van out. He's going to take it to the junkyard, but he said, I had to take the radio out because it meant so much to me. in my walk with God, and this is how God got through to me when I was so angry
So good.
and so bitter.
Yeah.
And this is the method he used. And I just love that if we're praying for somebody, God just does the work. He uses whatever method he wants to use to get their attention. And I tell people all the time, if you have somebody praying, you are marked.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to run away from God. You're a marked person. Like, he's going to get you.
That's good.
And he's going to get you with his love. And so he takes the radio out of the van, and a thin dime falls out. And to us that would mean nothing.
Yep.
And God spoke to him and he said, "You're worth this thin dime and so much more." And the backstory was, when he was being abused as a child, his dad would put a gun in his mouth trying to scare him, and he was like, "I would kill you, but you're not worth a thin dime."
Wow.
And when that felt, and it was just God saying, "I see you.
Yeah.
I love you." And God walked him through such a radical transformation. And the people, not just around Noble Street, but they all have stories like that of tremendous suffering and abuse. And God just wants them to know that they are seen and that they are loved and that they are treasured. And we do that by going.
Yes.
Whether it's a haircut, whether it's toiletries, when we share the gospel, when we feed them a meal. I have a great friend who's been clean for years now. And she was trafficked for years, and she was on heroin. And God positioned her in a crack house that was directly across from a church.
Okay.
And the ladies had noticed that she was thin. And so they brought her some clothes. And they just began to love on her, like nothing churchy. Like, they would bring her clothes, they would bring her food, they would write her little notes. And she said, I would look at those clothes, and she said, I might be getting ready to go take a client. She said, but I wouldn't be able to get high because I knew somebody loved me, and I'd never experienced love in my entire life.
Wow.
And now she's a minister and going to be a holistic MD.
That's awesome.
And God has restored her, but she was like, when you give something away, if it's nail polish, because we used to, we do nail polish to the traffic girls, and she was like, I would look at that and wouldn't be able to get high because I knew God loved me.
Wow.
So good.
And I think we overcomplicate it.
Yep. Yep.
Like, go into the lost is this complicating thing when it's not. It's really, can you just go show the kindness and compassion of Jesus?
Yes.
And miracles happen.
Yeah.
100%. Well, I mean, one of the, I think, problems that we've had in our church is that we can separate something that we think is sacred from something that's secular. And so much of the church has very secular gifts that aren't necessarily used in the pulpit. And while those of us that are in clergy, we're in ministry, there is a value that we feel in walking in our calling, but so many, they're a gift of carpentry. They can lay tile, they can paint,
Yes.
they can do cosmetology, they can do makeup or something like that. And those gifts so often get neglected. And I think that this is a prime opportunity to use those gifts to reach people. Use those
Absolutely.
gifts to touch someone.
Even just like cooking, I would go down there and just ask them, what's your favorite meal? And
Yep.
they would say enchilada casserole. I said, okay, next week I'm making everybody enchilada casserole. And I would just go out there and have enough for everyone
Yep.
just to have it, or I'd ask somebody, hey, what's your favorite bag of chips? And I made sure next week I had, 5 of that kind for him. It wasn't anything spiritual. It was just, I see you, you have favorites, you have those things, and I want to provide those things for you. Jesus loves you. And so it's just really simple sometimes, just bringing I learned all their favorite cookies, and just bringing everybody the favorite cookie they liked. And that kind of stuff just goes so far, and it's really just so simple.
One time we were serving food, and we had a huge line, and our team was serving food, and we were running out, and we could tell that we weren't going to have enough food for everyone that was in line. And just as they gave the last bit of food away to the last person, literally a food truck drove up, and this man said, I saw you guys out here, was it 1 or 2 weeks ago?
I can't remember.
Like the week prior. He said, I saw y'all a week ago, and I felt, and God spoke to me to come help y'all. and we gave away that last bit of food, and this guy pulls up in his own food truck and served gourmet burgers
Yeah.
for the rest of the people that were
Beautiful.
outside.
That's
And
beautiful.
so that was just someone using their gift. They were just cooking.
Yes. And I love how if it's God's will, it's his bill, and he always provides. So if you're at home today and you've been saved any amount of time and you're like, God, I want something to do, something that's meaningful, something that brings purpose and joy. And even if you're healing from trauma, one of the principles of healing is giving back. It totally changes the way we think, and it brings our self-esteem up. And so if you want to give back, I encourage you to go to the link, and whatever gift you have in your hand, God can use it. He can use it to reach the lost. You know, we talk about the Great Commission all the time, and we talk about going, but the Lord said first in Jerusalem, then in Judea. Like, we are supposed to steward our community. It is the church's job to care for the least of these.
That's right.
And to feed the homeless. And when we look through Scripture, especially the Old Testament, any Jewish person will tell you that the second temple was destroyed because they were not caring for the orphans and widows.
Wow.
These people are on God's heart.
Yep.
It says this is true and undefiled religion, to care for the orphan and the widow, the least of these, those that can't care for themselves. So we encourage you. I know we're run out of time, guys, but we want you to get involved. There is a process to get involved and volunteer. So if you want to, I want you to reach out to Pastor Adrian and Pastor Kayla on the link that is provided and just say, how can I help? And maybe physically you already have a lot to do. And if you want to give toward this project, you can find the giving link on that page as well. We invite you to come and visit them in Antioch Revival Center. The address is on the website.
Yes.
The address is on the website, and it's just like family. So we will see you guys next Wednesday. We thank you. We ask that you pray for this project and that you get involved as you can. And we will see you on United with Christ next week.